Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smart Trucking Live. Hope you're all doing good out there. Good to see you all jumping in. Hamish, glad to see you here. Josh Peterbilt, 389, thank you for joining us. Cass Johnson's here. Braden Coates, hello from British Columbia. Trucking with V is here. Kelly Patterson, good to see you, Kelly. Sean Busser or Buser? How are you? Igor is here from Brazil. He says there's lots of rain there. He's still hauling logs out of the wood. Lots of rain and muddy roads. Bradley Weaver's here. Thank you for joining us, Bradley. Chase the Master is here. Joe S is here. Fat Dan, Fat Dan, good to see you made it this time. I know you and I chatted about you missing it last week, but that's okay. You made it. You made it here today. You're fine as frogs here, so that's good to hear. Riley's here. Captain Nice Guy. Good afternoon to you, sir. Scott Kuhn is here from Illinois. Trucker Hershey is here, and there's Shannon from Casper, Wyoming. Glad to see you, Shannon. Welcome back.
Your microphone is nowhere close to your mouth again.
Over here.
So they haven't heard any of this.
Well, they've probably heard it, but it's been very quiet.
I just realized that I didn't have my mic. So let's start from the top.
They heard it.
Yeah. Anyway, glad to see you guys all here. Who had I just welcomed there? Fat Dan. I was talking about Fat Dan, fine as frogs here. Who else have we got? Captain Nice Guy, Scott Kuhn, Trucker Hershey's here. Shannon, glad to see you here, Shannon. Appreciate you joining us. Saw those videos you sent. Holy cow, something else. Claude's here. Cass Johnson, hi from Alberta. Well, let's see here. I guess we could get rolling. I think I saw, there's SoCal Sandman. Thank you for joining us. You got surgery coming up, eh? Remind me again what that is for. I know it's serious stuff, whatever it is you're doing. But you've got our best wishes for that, of course. Ted Lane, hello all. Hello, Ted. Trucker Willie. Jonathan Albrecht. Brian Walt. John Taylor. Anybody on here know me? We know you, John. Kyle Backen. Tim Aaron. Here's a shout out for you, Tim. How are you doing? Daniel Meredith is here. Welcome, Daniel. And Douglas Martinez Rojas is here as well. Container Guru. Good evening from Kentucky. Good evening, sir. Roger Penske. Oh, where did Roger go? I just caught I hate the way these things jump.
You have a scroll.
Yeah, I'm looking up and down for it here now.
What are you looking for?
Where Roger Penske's comment. I thought I caught that he was coming out of the Triple T, but I didn't catch the whole thing and it jumped. One of my old time favorite truck stops anyway.
Just leaving the Triple Tree Tuck stop in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah.
Back up to home Phoenix and then Yuma.
That's a cool old truck stop, the Triple T. It's been there ever since I can remember anyway. Last time I was there it was kind of showing its age and it was a little quiet. At one time that was a real hot spot, but I'm glad to hear it's still there anyway. The topic for today's stream is the FMCsa safety first ? So this is a good FMCsa day. We'll talk about all things FMCsa. But I wanted to note that they've finished appointing their driver panel, and I'm kind of excited about this because I think it's a great idea. I hope they actually listen to these drivers and do something with the information that the drivers give to these bureaucrats, because these guys are bureaucrats. They really don't know anything about trucking. Now, this guy Wiley Deck, that's the new head of the FMCsa. Apparently, he's a fairly astute fellow. I believe it was his idea to implement this driver panel in the first place. So he's already gone up, in my estimation, over the last few that have been there. So let's see. I'd like to know from you guys here today. Now that we've got this driver panel on the FMCsa, what would you like to see them push for change with the FMCsa? What would you like to see them submit? What are the problems in your minds that you think this driver panel can bring forward to the FMCsa, hopefully with some positive results? That's the type of thing I'm looking for today, because I want to know, and I've got a whole bunch of suggestions for that driver's panel. I'm hoping, I know they'll implement or put forward a bunch of good stuff, because there's so much to say. There's so many areas that the FMCsa needs to start listening to the truck drivers more. And by truck drivers, I don't mean the ATA. The ATA has had the FMCsa's ear for far too long, and they're the only people, aside from the other bureaucrats, that the FMCsa's really listened to. And that's not really fair, because the ATA doesn't represent truck drivers. The ATA represents company owners. And I'm interested in what the drivers think and what the drivers want to see from the FMCsa.
Thomas Austin, thank you very much for the $10 donation, my friend. Really appreciate the support on that. And my other one was Footy Wizard with the $5. What do you think of the Cummins engine in Ram pickups? Masterstroke from Dodge putting a 500k mile plus engine in a pickup? Thank you both very much for the donations.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. As far as them putting a Cummins engine in the Dodge, probably a smart move. Cummins makes a good motor, especially their smaller motors. But back to the FMCsa. What changes? What would you like to see them suggest to the FMCsa? I got a whole list of things I'd like to see. And the first thing is, a whole lot of flexibility is needed in the hours of service rules. And I propose, for instance, that if you're 2 hours or less from your final destination, like if you're an hour and a half from home and you run out of hours, you should be able to take it the rest of the way home. Or if you're an hour and a half from the terminal, you should be able to take it back to the terminal. I think it's goofy to have to knock off an hour or 45 minutes from the house or from the terminal or something like that. I say propose some leeway in that section of the hours of service so you can at least take it all the way home, so you can sleep in your own bed rather than an hour from your house in a rest area. That's goofy. There's a change I'd like to see them propose. I'd like to see them propose a 1 hour leeway at the end of the day to be able to find a safe haven. Say if you run out of hours at the shippers, you wait there, finish getting loaded, you're out of hours. I'd like to see them allow a 1 hour window for you to get from the shippers to a safe haven, to a truck stop.
Euro Car is coming in with the $7. Thank you very much for that, my friend.
Yes, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. What else do you guys, what do you think? What should these guys, this team, be suggesting to the FMCsa? Blake says paying drivers better so we don't have a shortage anymore. Yeah.
I have a quick question for you, Dave, from the chat. It has nothing to do with today's topic, but we can't overlook this one. What is a large car? What is a large car?
A large car is a big, fast truck. Doesn't have to be a long hood conventional, but usually is. But we used to call even the big fancy cab overs were large cars, and the definition was that they could run 80 or 90 miles an hour all day and all night long. So that's the definition of the large car.
Jonathan Mestro coming in with a 5. Good to see you in the chat this afternoon, Jonathan. Regular here. There should be some sort of legislation that allow truckers to carry their firearm with a concealed carry across the country.
Interesting. You know, Jonathan, I think they're working on that too. There's an interesting suggestion. And it's not like you want to have to use the gun, but more and more instances today, truck drivers are being put in unsafe positions, and you need to be able to defend yourself. Bottom line.
Adam Bennett coming in with a $10 donation as well. Thank you very much for that, my friend. No more 34 reset, 10 hours, and you've got 70 hours again.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I never minded the reset. I had the problem with the fact that they would push you out immediately after the reset was up. If you were at home, for instance, I think that should be the driver's choice, but interesting. We used to have a system where, and I guess it still exists, where you recounted your hours and you could just keep running a few hours a day. I forget what they even call that now, but I think legally that's still on the books.
Bradley Weaver coming in with a 50 bomb, my friend. You did one last stream and you're back again at it with another 50 here. Bradley, we're so glad you're enjoying the content. Thank you so much. If you have any questions you want to throw in chat, feel free to do so. We'll make sure those get answered.
Bradley, thank you. Really appreciate it. Daniel says drivers who have been driving for years from paper logs or electronic logs or things change from better to worse, and what improvements that just don't work. Yeah, are the ELDs really an improvement? I know they've got some issues. Certainly there are fewer guys these days that are running out of hours, but like I say, there's a complete lack of flexibility in the ELDs, and that's the problem they're having now. I'd like to see them bring that up with the FMCsa. That's a big problem.
Eurocar's coming in again with a $14 donation. You guys are already crushing it right off the bat here with the donations. Thank you very much for that, Eurocars.
Thank you, Eurocars. Appreciate that. Now, Daniel Meredith asks, with new drivers, is it really a good question for including myself, who's been driving for 2.5 years? I'm not sure if I must have missed the first part of that, but what I wanted to say and what bears in reference to that is that I think that the FMCsa should quit allowing these mega carriers to have these driver trainers with 3 months experience. I don't think the FMCsa should even allow that. I don't think they should allow rookie teams. I think if you're going to be a driver trainer, a real driver trainer, you should have at least 7 years experience on the road, not 3 months, because you haven't learned squat in 3 months. And I'd like to see the driver panel introduce that into the FMCsa and get rid of some of these practices. These mega carriers are doing that. Some of them are they're crazy. Recap, container glue. That's the word I was looking for before. Thank you. But yeah, you can still run a recap log. You don't see guys doing it, I guess now because of the ELDs. But yeah, technically those are still legal. So I'd like to see them propose that they don't have any more of these rookie teams. And something else they're coming up with down the pike here now is they're changing the split sleeper allowance again. Now they're talking about doing 5 and 5 and 6 and 4. And I really don't see what bloody difference it makes as long as you get your 10 hours sleep. So I don't see why you can't just get your 10 hours, whether it's 8 and 2, 9 and 1, 6 and 4, however you do it. I don't see what the split difference is. Just get rid of that as long as everyone gets 10 hours of sleep. At some point, they should be good to go. Yeah, SoCal Sandman, that's a great one, Dave. I didn't know squat after 3 months to be able to train a newbie. SoCal Sandman, nobody does. Me either. So that's a crazy practice. They should not allow mega carriers to do that. It's the blind leading the blind. Kathy's right, but the mega carriers it's all money oriented, eh? But the FMCsa, the S stands for safety, not help the mega carriers. So that's what I propose they concentrate on, is more safety. Yeah. What else don't I like? They're talking again now about growing 53-foot trailers. They want to have 57-foot trailers become legal now. I am not in favor of that. I don't imagine there's a truck driver out there that's in favor of that. These trailers have gotten bigger and bigger over the years, and every time they got bigger, it wasn't because the truck drivers wanted bigger trailers. It was because the shippers and receivers, primarily the auto parts guys, wanted bigger trailers. That's how we ended up in this mess with these 53-foot trailers. So I'd like to see this driver panel input to the FMCsa that some of these rules are ridiculous. If safety is their concern, like, God, there's so many safety issues. Look at these autonomous trucks being experimented with on the highway. Yeah, Captain Nice Guy says, 3 bunk trucks, 3-man teams. Can you say rolling 34-hour restart? Yeah, that's just a way to beat the system. That's just, Yeah, Colin says, let's go back to 40-footers. I started with a 40-foot trailer. They were very nice to pull. Quite preferred them. Something else I'd like to see them say to the FMCsa is, let's get rid of these low rolling resistance big single tires, because those things are absolutely useless on anything but dead pavement. It's so easy to get stuck or spin out with those tires. I don't think they should be legal. And you don't know where the truck's going to be sent. I'm sure they try to concentrate them in LA, but it doesn't always happen. I say get rid of them. Daniel Ford says, I've been driving almost 8 years, and I can safely say that I will never feel comfortable training someone because I still don't know how to do everything myself. There's Daniel Ford. He's got 8 years in, and he says, I'm still learning stuff myself. So, and everybody is still for years. It's a constant learning process.
Jonathan, thank you once again for another $5 donation. A 3-month rookie trainer plus a rookie trying to park in the Northeast equals gridlock in the truck stop and destroyed bumpers.
Oh yeah, Jonathan, thank you for that. And you're just so right. And you take rookie drivers and stick them on the Eastern Seaboard in that traffic and congestion, and it's a nightmare. And then let them coach other drivers. That's insane. Half the time they're hiding under the seat. They're so scared anyway. So, and there's something else I don't think you should be allowed to do is have your trainer in the bunk. If you're going to be a trainer, you've got to be in the seat. If you're in the bunk, you're not training. Period. They're not supposed to. They do it all the time. Werner's been caught for that so many times I can't even believe it. And they keep doing it. But I think the FMCsa should clamp down a lot harder on these stupid practices that these mega carriers like to do in order to make more money, like 3-month driver trainers and rookie teams and stuff like that. This is from Daniel. Mega carriers fail to do safely, and they have trailers so tight next to each other, asking to damage trailers next to each other or yourself. Yeah, they like to save room, and then they'll blame the damage on you. It's interesting. Oh, there's something else. There's another mega carrier practice I'd like to see this driver panel suggest to the FMCsa, and that is to stop these leasing programs that the carriers use on their drivers, because it's a scam. It's a rip-off system. Half the carriers now are making more money leasing trucks than they are hauling freight. I think the FMCSA should step in and say, that's a crooked practice, no more of that.
I couldn't care less about it.
I think this driver panel has got its work cut out for them, though. It's the FMCSA, the S in FMCSA, the S stands for safety. And that's supposed to be their primary goal. In fact, their primary mission is, and I wrote it down, reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities involving trucks and buses. That is their primary mission. And yet you see the FMCSA getting into things like lowering driver eyesight standards now. That's the latest one. So how that promotes safety, and they're lowering the standards on the driver's eyesight. So is that improving the safety? No. That's helping the mega carriers with the driver shortage. So they're going to lower the standards. Another instance of the FMCSA helping the driver shortage and helping the mega carriers, they're lowering the age level. Lowering the age level at which drivers can run interstate to try to recruit more drivers fresh out of high school. Does that sound like a safety practice to you? Does that sound like I just talked about the eyes, yeah. That's insane. And that's insane too, but does that sound like a safety practice? Recruit younger drivers? Does lowering the eyesight standard sound like a safety practice to you? What's the third one? Oh, and here's another new safety practice. The FMCSA, it used to be that if you had a radar detector or a CB or a box of Kleenex or whatever it was sitting up on the dash, interfering with the windshield, you couldn't have that. You couldn't have anything that interfered with your visibility out the windshield. And that's why some states even got on guys with these drop visors. Canada got on guys with drop visors because they said the visors were too low and they were interfering with the driver's field of vision. However, now the FMCSA is going to allow autonomous equipment to be hung in the windshield, right in the windshield, blocking the driver's view so the truck can help learn to navigate the roads as the driver drives. So he's got this screen or this chunk of equipment or this camera blocking his vision over on his passenger side so they can mount this equipment in there to record what's going on out in front of the truck. So how in God's green earth that's a safety practice is beyond me, but it's just it's hugely influenced by the ATA, by the mega carriers, and I think that should not be allowed, and I hope these drivers speak to that with the FMCSA and say, hey, let's get back on track here, because some of these practices are crazy. There's nothing safe about them.
But why does it take a team of truck drivers to tell them that?
Well, it takes a team of truck drivers to tell the FMCSA that because they're bureaucrats. They don't know any better. And the only people they've been listening to up until this point have been the mega carriers in the ATA. And the mega carriers, of course, will do anything for a buck. So they're not interested in safety. If they were interested in safety, they wouldn't do half the stuff they do. They're interested in money. But the FMCSA, sometimes they just don't know any better. And they think they're helping when they help the mega carriers. But that's not a safe practice. And common sense hasn't been rampant the last few years in the FMCSA. You can tell who's lining their pockets. I'm hoping for better things from Wiley Deck here. I think we'll see better things. The fact that he's introduced this driver panel, I think, is a sign of that, because there needs to be some practical thought put into some of the rules that are going into the highway rules and regs these days, and there hasn't been the last few years. We need some practical thinking, and I'm counting on Todd Spencer and this drivers panel to do that and help the FMCSA recognize what's smart and what's not. FMCSA. Yes, I stumble over my words.
Jonathan coming in with another 5. Thank you so much for that, my friend. Imagine a 3-month experienced teenager, 18-year-old rather, training another teenager in the middle of winter on the mountain.
And
And it happens. It's crazy. It's just, like, who thinks of this stuff? Did they just put Major Pete in charge of transportation? Philip Trucker, he's talking about the new Secretary of Transportation. Major Pete. I hadn't heard that one. I've heard Pickle Park Pete, but I hadn't heard Major Pete. But yes, apparently that's going to be our new Secretary of Transportation. But he'll be governing planes, trains, and automobiles as well as the trucks. But yeah, I've heard of Major Tom. I guess, yeah. Yeah. Captain Nice Guy says, also note the term safety driver is an oxymoron. Shannon says, I hope you're right, Dave, but I don't have high expectations. Well, Shannon, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm taking the positive road. Todd Spencer's on that board, so I'm sure he'll be steering them with some common sense in the right direction. He's a guy with a head on his shoulders, so I'm hoping Shannon for good things out of this deal.
So what do you think this team is going to achieve?
I'm hoping what this team will do was insert some common sense thinking into the FMCsa and help them and point out to them some of these crazy notions that the ATA and the others have interjected, like lowering eyesight standards. Anybody can see there might be a problem with that. Why are they lowering them? They're only lowering them to get more guys in the door. Is that a good idea, though? Is that a safe idea? And I'm hoping this team will say exactly that to the FMCsa and to its board and to its people. Like, look at this. How is that a safety thing? How is that safe? And the FMCsa is not going to be able to explain why that's a good idea. But sometimes you just need to drag their feet into the fire to make them to pay attention. I hope that's what this new drivers team will do. All the goofy rules that we have now and regulations in trucking. I'm hoping that this driver team injects some common sense into the lawmaking. That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah, SoCal Salmon says common sense thinking and FMCsa do not belong in the same sentence. Well, like I said to Shannon, I'm hoping for better things here. I'm hoping that the FMCsa learns some common sense moves from this new driver team.
There's a comment. Did you read the Trucker Herald?
No. Driving with John. I know this sounds crazy, but they should do a graduating hours of service. For example, 9 hours of driving every day if you have under 6 months experience, 10 months at a year, and so on. That's an interesting suggestion. And you know what? I never even thought of that. Interesting. Good idea, John.
Trucker Herald says more and more companies are sending guys right out of a CDL program with no trainer due to lack of trainers.
Oh my God. I don't even know what to say about that. That's just... See that? The FMCsa should just clamp down on that like yesterday. Does that sound safe in any stretch of the imagination?
This is a good one right here. I like this one. SoCal Sandman says, that's why we like you, Dave. You're optimistic.
That's right. That's right. You've just caught me on a good day.
Oh, God.
What did I just read?
My family might attest differently there.
He goes back and forth some days.
And forth and back.
Depends on what you ask him, really.
What this topic is.
Here's another interesting point. Bonanza Transport. They can't fix the roads. The economy will collapse. The police, the courts, the fire trucks, ambulance, hospitals, tow trucks, body shops, insurance. Yeah, that's got to be part of their mandate. Now that's more Pickle Park Pete's area of jurisdiction. Gotta excuse me. Gotta repair the infrastructure. That's Secretary of Transportation. Excuse me. Something caught in my throat there. Excuse me. Yeah. All them drivers are ATA drivers, get a nice bonus as long as they say what the ATA wants. Well, Michael, yeah, some of them are ATA drivers, but truck drivers are kind of an independent type. I hope they speak the truth and speak their minds rather than what the carriers want them to say. Excuse me.
I have a question for you, Dave. How much do you think the public, the driving public, knows about the FMCSA, and how much do you think they know about how things work in trucking, the position of the ATA and the FMCSA? Because truly, if they knew the way things operated, I think things might change. How much do you think the average person really knows? Not truck drivers.
Kathy raises a good point there. The driving public, the average guy in the four-wheeler, knows nothing about the FMCSA. In fact, half the truck drivers out there don't know anything about the FMCSA. And that's been part of the problem, because the general public doesn't even know about the FMCSA. They don't pay attention to what's going on their roads. Maybe it should be more of a hot button issue that needs to be brought to the attention of the public.
Because truly, it's the public that yells and screams, and rightly so, when there's a horrific truck accident. And, say things should be changed in this and that, but it shouldn't come to that. But if the public was more aware, the public might be able to, as much as I hate to say it, put more pressure on the right people to change things. I don't know if I'm barking up the wrong tree or not.
No, I'd have to agree with that, because generally the only time the driving public finds out about rookie teams, for instance, is if they've been hit by one of them. And then they're aware that that's a practice within the trucking industry. But the average guy, unless he's never been involved in a truck accident and found out how much experience his driver has or has not, the average guy in the car wouldn't have a clue. And he's got a million things on his mind, but that's probably not one of them. I think Kathy raises a good point. Public awareness, perhaps, of what the FMCsa is, who they are and what they do or what they're supposed to be doing. Bring that more into the public forefront. That might be a really good idea.
Captain Nice Guy with a 20. Thank you so much for that, my friend. What would help? I think re-regulation in terms of freight, that, driver first legislation. If you improve the quality of life over the average driver, then you produce a higher quality driver. True enough. Jonathan with the 5 as well. How can the FMCSA help the lack of parking when the majority is owned by private corporations and land is very limited in some parts of the country? Thank you very much for both of your donations, Captain Nice Guy and Jonathan.
Good points both there. Let me address the first one. And that goes back again to the issue of pay, which goes back again to re-regulation. And I think you're absolutely right. If you produced a better quality driver, you would do so by making it a job in which not just any clown with a pulse could get into. I think if you raise the driving standards and raise the driving pay, you'd get more professional drivers, fewer accidents. Yeah, I think that's going in the right direction. It's exactly right. And to address the parking situation, that's a tough call, because it is the truck stops providing all the parking. But the government's got plenty of money they could inject into something like that. There's all sorts of vacant land everywhere. So why, it shouldn't be the private corporations just providing the parking. The government itself should put in a whole lot more rest areas and big parking lots for trucks.
There isn't a whole lot of value in attracting high quality drivers when the pay isn't there to attract them.
Well, they'll never attract high quality drivers with crap pay. The guys that are still out there now making good money are the good drivers still. But those jobs are, fewer and fewer and farther between these days. So, of course, the standards have slid. But if everyone made 80K or better, they would have a higher quality driver base. And I think that's essential to safety. But here again, the mega carriers have got the wages so low, they only attract guys with a pulse. They don't train them properly. They just turn them loose on the roads. The FMCsa looks the other way, and here we are today.
Colin with the $5 donation. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. How about legislation protecting truck drivers in cases where the accident is caused by the four-wheeler?
Yeah, Colin's good point there. Thank you for the donation, but yeah, an excellent point. It's interesting that they don't distinguish between who causes the accident when they look at these accident statistics. And the Bureau of Statistics in the United States, they look at accident statistics, but they don't look at the cause. Who caused it?
Where did the stats come up with that less than?
They just show truck accident.
Where did the stats come that show that truck drivers cause very few accidents?
From the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
A different body.
But people like the OOIDA, through their own homework, have been able to determine that truck drivers only cause about 7% of the accidents. But they should have national information available to the FMCsa, readily available to the FMCsa, as to who caused each and every accident. So the FMCsa, in return, could see where the weak points were and see that the truck drivers usually are not at fault in these accidents.
People, though, are very confused about it. I had an email conversation with a driver the other day. I can't remember how it started. And he ended up quoting back to me that truck drivers, quote unquote, caused over 90% of accidents. And he was going on. And I mean, he had it totally backwards.
Yeah.
So can you imagine what the driving public thinks?
Yeah.
But I think that should be information that's readily available to the public. But you know as well as I do, that's deliberately held back and kept under wraps.
Yeah, they deliberately hide the material.
The truth.
They juggle the statistics. They'll refer to a truck accident as anything involving a pickup truck, for instance. That's referred to as a truck accident.
And the stats are still in favor of the trucks.
And the stats are still in favor of the trucks, but we need more accurate information on that. More public information on that, because the FMCsa only knows what the ATA has been telling them, and of course that's a very one-sided story. So the FMCsa the FMCsa doesn't even listen to the National Transportation Safety Board, a group that's put in to provide suggestions on how to prevent accidents, and the FMCsa doesn't usually take their recommendations, which just amazes me. So I guess that's political infighting or something like that. But, politics are getting in the road of safety. Another crazy deal. I heard someone who thought it's okay to cut off a truck because they've got more sets of brakes.
I've heard that often.
Wow.
I hear that a lot.
Wow. There's a ton of misinformation, and four-wheelers, they should be educated on trucks and how they work and what the real deal is for their stopping distance or something like that. FMCsa could easily suggest that to the powers that be outside the trucking community, like the National Transportation Safety Board, for instance. Why aren't they doing stuff like that? Why aren't the FMCsa focused more on safety and less on other things?
Why?
Why? Yeah.
Why? Say it. Why?
Because they're a political body and they're not doing their job. And I hope this driver pool helps bring them back to center and steer them in the right direction.
I bet they truly didn't want this driver pool.
Well, we've got a new guy in here running the show, this Wiley Deck. And hopefully he's made this suggestion to have this driver panel.
Yeah, I just
So-
wondering where the
so they-
driver panel, who brought it in.
I believe it was this new guy. So hopefully he plans to listen to them rather than it's just an appointment to appease other people. We'll see, the time will tell. But hopefully it's been an honest idea and it's not just to pacify some group. So, well, I guess time will tell. Sandman says I'm thinking positive these days. Right now I am. So let's hope that's the case. I'm hoping that's the case.
Step in the right direction.
It's a step in the right direction. If Todd Spencer senses it's a farce, he'll say so, and that'll be the end of it anyway. So he won't let them away with any bull. Are there any tanker drivers on the panel? Yes, there are, Philip Drucker. I don't have the list in front of me, but yes, there were.
You were skeptical that they're truck drivers.
When,
So they're SoCal Sandman.
when they first announced the panel, I thought, let's see who's on this panel, because I didn't recognize any of the names other than Todd Spencer. So I started grabbing names at random because it would say the name and then Yellow Transport or whatever it was. So I'd researched them. And it turned out these people are actually drivers. I thought, well, they're going to be middle management or something. But the ones I checked, and I didn't check them all, but the ones I did check actually were truck drivers. So
I recognized a few.
so that made me feel a little better. At some point, the general public will pay when there are no more truck drivers to move the freight. Yeah, then they'll pay attention. That's right, Trucker Herald.
That's a good question. Is the DOT part of the FMCsa? That's a good question.
Yes, they're
See the question?
is the DOT part of the FMCsa. The FMCsa dictates to the DOT what and how they're going to do stuff. FMCsa is the rule maker, DOT is the hammer. That's how that works. Kyle says, in my opinion, the meatballs are making the regulations are absolute idiots. It's obvious that they've never been near a truck or driven anything bigger than a Prius. And that's, yeah, that's true too. And what's interesting is that guys like the head of the ATA, this Chris Spears, he's never driven a truck either. He's an inside Washington guy. He's a politician. He's a lobbyist. He doesn't know anything about trucks either. But the ATA's mission is political. It's not safety, and it's financial, but it's not safety.
Who influences the FMCsa the most? Do you feel? What's your most honest answer?
The most honest answer is to who influences the FMCsa the most. Up until this point, it's been the ATA, and that's been a large part of the problem.
Tell the people who the ATA is.
The ATA is the American Trucking Association. They are a group of owners of trucking companies, big trucking companies, and they wield a lot of power in the industry. These companies like Werner and Swift, with thousands and thousands of trucks. So they have an agenda. They think what's good for them. They run and suggest it to the FMCsa, and it's crazy how often the FMCsa doesn't look any further and go, oh, okay, that's a good idea, let's do that, because the ATA said that. A while back they had California was proposing more rest breaks for truck drivers. Now, what could be wrong with that? What could be safer than that? Well, the FMCsa ended up, first they said, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a safety idea. And they went with California's suggestion. And then the ATA started screaming and go, because they were losing money, because the trucks were stopping to rest the drivers. And the ATA went to the FMCsa and said, no, we got to change this. This isn't working for us. And by God, the FMCsa changed its mind and eliminated driver breaks in California for the ATA's sake. Like, where's the common sense in that? It was because it was costing the ATA money because the drivers were stopping to rest. So they've got to quit listening to the ATA, because the ATA's motivation isn't safety, but the FMCsa should know what's safe and what's money motivated, and they've had a hard time figuring that out. And these decisions they're making now about lowering the eyesight standards and stuff like that, like in what universe is lowering the eyesight standards a good idea for safety? Like, I can't imagine an argument that would say, oh, well, if we get a guy that's 3/4 blind, he'll be able to maneuver a truck better. He'll be able to,
maneuver a truck equally as well.
Maneuver a truck even equally as well. In what universe can you justify that? Or taking kids out of high school and putting them at the wheel of 80,000-pound rigs running coast to coast.
Because the pressure is on to solve the so-called driver shortage. Need more drivers. Lower the age. Lower the standards. Lower the hurdles.
The driver shortage exists because the carriers, primarily the mega carriers, pay the driver as little as they possibly can, because they've got to be able to pay the shareholders as much as they can, and the CEOs need to drag down multi-million-dollar salaries every year. And that's why the driver pay is so low. And it's just so these guys can get rich and the shareholders can get rich, and it's all about money. And there's nothing safety related about it. And people need to be aware of this. Here's the body that's supposed to be keeping them safe in truck accidents and bus accidents, the FMCsa. There's the federal body in charge of keeping it safe, and they're doing stuff like promoting half-blind drivers or hanging stuff in the windshield so the next series of trucks can evolve that don't need people in them. It just amazes me.
I have a quick announcement. The Lettuce King is in the house.
Oh, Lettuce King. I'm dying here. I'm choking. When are you going to join us on one of these streams? Good to have you join us. Are you wrenching underneath trucks over in Wingham still? What are you up to? Give us your take, Lettuce King, on the FMCsa and this driver's panel. If you weren't Canadian, we'd have planted you on that driver's panel, but I don't know if you'd have been able to behave yourself down there. But it would have been interesting to see until they kicked you out anyway.
James, thank you very much for the $5 donation, my friend. New York State causes a lot of issues with having quality drivers. They provide translators to get a license, not just having four-wheelers, but also to get a CDL.
Oh my God. See, some states don't even allow that. Iowa. I remember being impressed with Iowa because Iowa was pulling guys in with plates, and they admitted this to me on the sly, that they just wanted to see if they could speak English. They had to have a command of the language to operate a truck in Iowa. That was the law. But they were spot checking that. And interesting to see that New York now no longer has that as a requirement. I mean, if you don't have a command of the language, it's kind of tough to read the road signs, don't you think? But, where's the FMCsa on something like that? There's a good example. Just insane. Safety. The government installs the FMCsa to manage the safety of commercial vehicles, and the FMCsa is trying to help manage the driver shortage. Oh, Lettuce King says he's up at stretches working on a 359. Nice.
Somebody had a question in chat. I don't have the exact words, but basically they've asked how is the high multi-million-dollar salaries of the CEO of these big companies, how is that justified? What do they do? Like, why are they being paid so much?
The standard rule.
Good question.
The standard rule for salaries for these CEOs of these mega carriers is that the CEO gets a percentage of the profit of the carrier. So, I don't know. As an example, let's say Werner does $100 million worth of business. The CEO's deal is that he gets 10% of that. The CEO then for that year gets a $10 million salary, or Derek Leathers gets a $10 million salary. That's the way it works. They get a percentage of the take of the carrier, and that's a pretty recognized way of doing it. Now I'm not sure what percentage it is that they get, but like the head of Schneider International last year, his salary was like $9 million. Just mind-boggling. Who needs to make $9 million a year every year in, year out, or $10 million or $12 million? Who needs that kind of money when your guys are living out of canning machines in the rest areas because they can't afford to eat properly? Like, who needs? Oh God, it's a crooked system. That's why you hear me ranting about the mega carriers all the time. But if you paid your people better, you get better people. It's as simple as that. That's why I hold some of these carriers down there in high regard, because they don't try to cheap their drivers out. They want quality drivers that aren't going to run their insurance costs through the roof, and they're willing to pay because they want to keep good guys. They don't want to have this revolving door. They don't want to have driver turnover. But if the FMCsa was doing their part, perhaps they would eliminate the process of starving cheap drivers, poorly training drivers, get rid of some of these practices. I'm hoping that this driver panel will start pointing these things out to Wiley Deck and the boys, and, start hammering their fists on the desks and say, look at this. Where's the safety here? It's contrary to safety. That's what I'm hoping for.
This committee can only be a good thing.
Yeah, Kathy. It can.
Drivers aren't going to just lie down and
No, it can only be a good thing. The drivers are going to speak their minds. They're going to give input. Can only be a good thing. What vintage wine is that I'm drinking? SoCal Sandman. That's just water. I've had a problem choking out the last couple of weeks. I don't know what's going on. Huh. Yeah, but for the amount of 64 cents per mile for one driver, you could have two drivers at 32 cents a mile. That's Michael Mueller. He's hit the nail on the head, and that's the problem. Roger Penske, there you are. Who needs that much money? Yeah. I just it just boils my blood. Yeah, I hear Bradley Weaver. Mega carriers have 3-month trainers because those are the longest tenured drivers. Oh, that's funny. And it's kind of true. Vazel says the CEOs of big companies need to spend a week or two with a driver on the road. The CEOs of these big companies need to try to live off the wages of these drivers out on the road. That's what I'd like to see. Yeah, who's dumb enough to drive for 32 cents a mile? Sadly, there's guys out there that need the job so badly that they're doing it. Yeah, and it should be illegal. There's something else that the FMCsa should do. It's something else the driver panel should propose to them. Wage control and working by the hour, for instance, and getting paid for downtime and stuff like this. It's crazy, but that's my rant for the day. I've got big things I'm hoping for out of this drivers panel because there's certainly room for improvement. Hopefully we'll see some improvement due to this driver panel. I'm truly happy to see Todd Spencer in there swinging because you've got a good guy there. So that's all I got to say about that. Yeah, and SoCal Sandman says here's another problem too: hauling cheap freight. Yeah, if you haul cheap freight, you can't pay your drivers well. All sorts of these carriers need to pony up and go to the shippers and demand more money. Costs go up every year. Everything goes up every year. But some of these big shippers just move freight far too cheap because what they do is they say, "Oh, we'll give you 10,000 loads if you do it for $1 a mile." And carriers should be going, no, not, I think we can make the guys work for 25 cents a mile.
Do it all the time.
And it happens all the time. And they'll put out a bid, these shippers will put out a bid to give it to the cheapest carrier that quotes on the bid. That should be illegal. That should be illegal as well. Trucker Curtis says he hopes we're having a great day. Yes, sir, we are. Yeah, AJ T680. Everything goes up except driver pay. It's all true. There's room for improvement. I'm hoping these guys, this new drivers panel, will help influence in the direction of improvement because there's all sorts of room for it. I guess that's it for today. I've enjoyed talking to you all.
Just take a moment here to acknowledge our donators for today. I want to thank everyone: Thomas Austin, Footy Wizard, Eurocars, Jonathan Mesrel, Adam Bennett, Bradley Weber, Captain Nice Guy, Colin L, and James Melanese. I believe that's how you say that. Thank you to all our donators today, and thank you to you, the viewer, who came out this afternoon and participated in this afternoon's chat. So without further ado, almost called you James for some reason. That's not right. Dave, if you want to tell us a little bit about Friday's video, and we'll wrap it up from there for this afternoon.
I'm his dad, and he doesn't know my name. Friday's.
I know your name some days.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know my name some days. She got me there.
That's probably the nicest thing I've ever called you is James. So take that as a blessing.
Okay,
Friday's video is we're going to do a contest, a comparison, a head-to-head contest between the Kenworth and the Pete to see which one shakes out as the better truck. So Lettuce King, I know you'll be in on that for us. And somebody just asked, Igor it was, wanted to know when we'll see Lettuce King on the live stream. Soon, I hope. Soon.
Before we sign off here, I just want to acknowledge James's second donation for the stream. Thank you for another $5. The biggest issue with driver pay is actually getting drivers to come together for a shutdown. That's because we can't all afford to stop driving or running rather.
Yeah, that's true. It's not the way it used to be. Anyway,
I have one thing to say in the chat before we take off for today. Best wishes to SoCal Sandman. He's going in for surgery this week. We won't see him for the stream next week. Everybody want to throw some best wishes into the chat and wish him well. Yes,
absolutely. Best wishes from us here, SoCal Sandman at Smart Trucking. We hope for the best. That's, heal up quick. We'll see you back soon. Good luck with that. So, everybody else, stay safe, take care. Be careful out there. The weather's bad. Keep the rubber side down, and we'll see you on the back haul. Good night, everybody.